Great. Hi guys, thank you for coming to our third career competency workshop, Writing Tips for Success and Scholarships. My name is Kaya. I'm a recent graduate of ISU and now I work for the School of Comm. So first we will hear all about scholarships and how to apply to them from our business manager, Denise Thomas. And then we'll get into how to level up your writing from our speaker today, Julie Navickas. So Julie is the Director of Student Success and Retention in the school. She is also a best-selling and award-winning fiction author and a 3-time recipient of a first-place BookFest Award. And today's workshop will be filled with lots of information, so make sure to take lots of good notes. And so we're gonna kick it off with Denise.
Good morning. That's kind of a tough thing to follow with all that. She's this and that and this and that, and I'm this. Okay. How many of you know that there are scholarships available to students in the School of Communication? Okay, well, we need to fix this. There are actually 44 scholarships that are available. Now, not all of those are student applied for scholarships. Some of those were donors that gave money to the school for initiatives in the school and allocated by the director. So Larry Long, a former chair of the department, gave us money for faculty travel and student travel and those kinds of things. But for the most part, we have scholarships available to students across all majors, and they are available on our website. How you find them, you go to the School of Communication website and go under the undergraduate tab. Over on Student Success, there's awards and scholarships, and it takes you to the page that lists all the criteria for each of the scholarships, and they are broke down by major. So this is where you're going to go and find the applications for scholarships when we open it up. Right now, there isn't anything out there to access. We're in the process of changing the scholarships, and when I give you the timeline, you'll understand why. So we are going to start promoting scholarships when you return from Christmas break on January 16th. You'll start getting bombarded with emails and see posters and giveaways and lots of fun things encouraging students to apply for the scholarships that are available. We are going to close those applications on March 1st. So from January 16th to March 1st, please apply for as many scholarships as you can. We will do the big check. Have any of you ever been in a class where the interns have come in and presented the big check to a scholarship recipient? Oh, we do the whole thing. Yeah, we make an obstacle of ourselves, but we have a good time. So the big check will open up March 18th, and I believe that's when you get back from spring break. That first week, we'll be out there harassing everybody with the big check. The luncheon, for those of you who haven't heard, we have an awards and scholarship luncheon that will take place on April 11th. At that luncheon, we invite all the donor families who have given money for scholarships to attend, to meet the scholarship recipients, and you get to bring your parents and your friends, and it's a wonderful, wonderful event. So that again takes place on April 11th. Oh, does anybody have any questions about the actual scholarship application process? Okay, I'm going to see all your names on application. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to our award-winning Julie Navickas. Thank you, Julie.
Thanks, Denise. All right, fabulous. Well, thank you so much, Denise. I really appreciate you being here to kick us off and talk about scholarships. This is a great opportunity to level up your writing so you can apply for a scholarship with your best foot forward. So that's our purpose for today. We are going to talk a little bit about how to level up your writing. Now, I want to start the conversation by saying I teach writing-focused courses right here in the School of Communication. So typically we have an entire semester dedicated to upping your level of writing. Today we have like 50 minutes, so we're going to do what we can to make this a positive experience for you. You guys are welcome to take notes if you'd like to take pictures of anything, or if you want me to send this out after the fact, I'm happy to do that for you. Any questions before we get started? Okay, excellent. So here's a large photo of me. Hi, I'm Julie. I think most of you know me. I see lots of faces that I recognize, which is wonderful. You guys typically know me right here as the person who does recruitment and the professional development and the social media and all that stuff for the school communication. But something you may not know about me is that I write romance novels on the side. So that's a little bit different, and that's kind of why I'm here to talk to you about this today. I really enjoy it, and I like to think that I'm good at it. So here are a couple of very basic, quick tips to automatically level up your writing. Now, I've been teaching writing courses for a long time, and that means I've graded a lot of student papers. So there are routinely things that will come up often that I just highlight and I mark, right? There are things that are always going to be just common mistakes. So what I tried to do is come up with the top 10 things that I routinely see that we can improve. And they are things that you can improve super easily. So here they are. The very first one, passive voice. If anybody has been in my class before, you've heard me talk about how much I hate passive voice. It's terrible. It's not good writing. And I'm going to tell you how to get away from it. Passive voice usually comes with the word was. I hate the word was. And I would challenge you to look in any of the stuff that I've written and find the word was, because you will not find it. And if there is, I slipped up, right? But the word was is always going to be passive in nature. So just train your brain. If you are using the word was, you are automatically falling into this little trap of passive voice. When you use was, you're telling a reader what's happening. You're not showing them. And that's really where we're going to spend our time today, is talking about how to show and not tell your reader what's happening. Here's a very quick example. Shows you the difference between passive voice and active voice. She was standing by the bed. It's past tense. It's wordy versus she stood by the bed. Now you are in the moment, right? It's less words, it's active. Do you see the difference there? Active writing is better writing. So I would challenge you to think about the style of words that you're using and lean towards this active side. I like to use this by zombies test, and I have to point to Sarah Hall in the back because she's the one who taught me the by zombies test. Here's what it is. If you can use the phrase by zombies in a sentence accurately, you are using passive voice. Here's an example. The party was hosted by zombies. Right? Past tense. It's passive. So if you flip it around, right, and you no longer use the phrase by zombies, right, you could say zombies hosted the party. So if you're using a phrase like by zombies, right, you automatically know it's passive. Challenge yourself, right, to rewrite the sentence so that you're not using by zombies, just simply zombies. And it doesn't have to be zombies, right? It could be Harry Styles. I don't care, right? Who hosted the party, right? But if you're using by Harry Styles, you know you're writing passively. Does that make sense? Mostly. We're going to keep working on it. So passive voice, tip number 1, write in an active voice. Number 2 is about dialogue tags. Now, dialogue tags, I think, are going to fall into a couple of different categories. If you're writing for a feature story, you are always going to have quotes that you use from an interview that you conducted. Or if you're writing in a creative sense, right? Maybe you're writing a short story or you're writing a novel, right? You're going to have characters who speak, or you're going to have interviewees who gave you a quote to share. You have to tell us, right, where the quote or where the information is coming from. And that's where dialogue tags come in. I often see students who will put a dialogue tag on everything. You don't need to do that, right? It's extra, it's filler. You certainly don't need to have it every single time you have a piece of dialogue. You're really only going to be using it when you don't think the reader can understand where the information is coming from. So just make yourself kind of aware, right, that you don't necessarily have to tell the reader every single time somebody is speaking, only when it's not clear. This is something that's pretty important too. I know sometimes students like to get a little snazzy and they want to add some spice to their writing. So they use, more creative language instead of just he said, or she said, or they said, right? So if you're trying to get a little crazy, right, that's fine here and there, but 9 times out of 10, stick to something that's very simple, right? The language itself, the context in the quote, that's way more important than who said it. So just keep it simple. That's a good piece of advice that I would offer you is you don't need to get super excited about the way that the quote was said, right? Just who did it come from? Another piece that drives me crazy, right? Oftentimes I will see somebody say, the party was super fun, she breathed. You don't breathe and speak at the same time, right? It doesn't make sense. So when you're trying to get a little creative, right, just go with something very simple. You don't breathe and speak at the same time. It was just simply she said, he said, right? Drives me nuts. And I see this in published stuff all the time. Like, that's not a dialogue tag, right? It's just simply how the information is said. Number 3, limit adverbs. How many of you are fans of Stephen King? Nobody's agreeing to I saw Kate go, I don't know. Stephen King. This is where I got this particular tip from, right? Are we all familiar with who Stephen King is? A wildly successful author, right? This person knows what he is talking about. He has authored, I don't know, hundreds, thousands, right, of science fiction novels, right? He has a very important quote that I would like to read to you today from Stephen King. I believe the road to hell is paved with adverbs, and I will shout it from the rooftops. To put it another way, they're like dandelions. If you have one on your lawn, it looks pretty and unique. If you fail to root it out, however, you find that 5 appear the next day, 50 the day after that. And then, my brothers and sisters, your lawn is totally, completely covered with dandelions. By then, you see them for the weeds that they are. But by then, it's gasp, too late, right? Really watch yourself when it comes to an adverb, right? They weaken your writing. They do not enhance it. This was absolutely one of the mistakes I made very early on in my career as an author. I used adverbs like crazy. And then somebody pointed out to me, this is terrible. Stop doing this, right? Couple of reminders, right, of what an adverb is, if we haven't kind of gone back to like English class in junior high, right? It's typically things that end in ly. So if you run quickly, extremely, rarely, always, right? It's something that's going to modify or qualify the adjective, right? So for example here, right, when I write a book, it's typically about 75,000 words. I will allow myself 3 adverbs per book. That's it, right? Adverbs weaken writing. If you need it, it's okay. Like, there's no rule against it. Nobody's going to be like, take this out, right? But try not to use them over the top, right? They will weaken your writing. So just be wary. Think about adverbs. Number 4, leaning into the emotions. This is really where really solid quality storytelling comes into play. It's not focusing on what a character or what someone is doing. It's how they feel about it. So focus on the feelings, right? If a character is thirsty and needs a glass of water, just tell us, right? The reader doesn't need to know that he tiptoed across the creaky floor and gently grasped the handle of the refrigerator, pulling from the top shelf a cold bottle of water. What'd you get out of that? Right? But what, you don't feel anything. You're like, okay, yeah, I picture that, right? That's totally fine, right? But the more impactful thing is, how did he feel about it? So as an author, as a writer, you focus on the feelings or the emotions that the actions help you get. So instead, you're going to describe what thirst feels like. The parched, scratchy throat, aching for a cold trickle of water to coat the tongue. What's more impactful? The feeling you get when you're thirsty and you're quenching that thirst, or how they actually got the water, right? The takeaway is much stronger here when you focus on the feeling you get instead of the action taking place. You'll build stronger characters, you'll connect with your readers, and those relationships will be much stronger. Let me pause here for a quick second. What questions do you have? Does anything come up? All good? Okay, excellent. Here we go. We're about at the midway point here, and we're going to talk about a couple more things, and then we're going to pause and do something that's a little bit more active. So number 5 is writing better sentences. So this one's got a couple of tips in it here. The first one is challenging what we call to be verbs. All right, to be verbs. Here's a couple of examples. Instead of saying a more lengthier version of he will be a good communicator, challenge that, right? Get rid of the excess words and use he will communicate effectively, right? So you're just rewording, thinking strategically about how do I use less words but still convey the same information. Instead of we are inviting you to, simplistically, we invite you, right? Get rid of those extra nonsense words that you don't necessarily need. Same thing when it comes to modifiers, right? Search for the stronger word. So instead of saying something like, we are very happy, well, what's a word that describes being very happy? Ecstatic, right? Search for the stronger word. She ran fast versus she sprinted, right? It's something that'll automatically elevate your writing. Use the stronger word. So look for those challenging and those modifiers. Long words and phrases. I see this very routinely, very often with all these extra nonsense words, right, that you just don't need in storytelling. So instead of using utilize, just use, right? A great number of, that means many, one single word. Come to the realization, realize, owning to the fact that, because, right? You guys can see the examples here, right? So the idea is to always use less words. So if you find that you're using some of these longer phrases, right, keep an eye out for them because there's typically a way you can say the same thing with just a single word. Eliminate prepositional phrases. This one drives me crazy. I'm going to tell you a story real quick. So way back, I want to say it was probably 5th grade, 6th grade for me, somewhere in there. I was in an English class, and my teacher made us memorize a list of prepositions. Did anyone else have to suffer through this?
I think so.
Yeah, right? About, above, across, after, against, along, among, around, at, before, behind, below, beneath, beside, between, beyond, but, by, down, for, except for, right? And it goes on, right? That was like 30 years ago, right? But it is like here in my brain forever, right? So I'm not saying memorize all the prepositions. That's a bad use of your time, right? But be on the lookout, right, of what prepositions do. They, again, are going to create longer sentences. You're adding additional words that you don't necessarily know, right? So think about those prepositions and how you can get rid of them. We will meet on Thursday in Centerville at the Lancaster Hotel on McDaniel Street near the harbor, right? Do we see what those prepositional phrases do? We will meet, right? Here we go. On Thursday, here's the first one. In Centerville, there's another. At the Lancaster Hotel, there's another. On McDaniel Street, there's another. Near the harbor, there's another. There's a way better way to write that sentence, right? Just be a little bit more concise and get rid of some of those prepositional phrases. We will meet on Thursday at the Lancaster Hotel, 1423 McDaniel Street, Centerville. Get rid of all of it, right? It's not needed. It's extra words. So just be on the lookout. Prepositions don't always strengthen your sentence. Challenge long sentences. This one's very short, very simplistic. General rule of thumb, if you have written a sentence that is more than 25 words, there's probably an opportunity for you to split it in half. So if you're like, oh, this has got a lot going on here, right? There's nothing wrong with splitting a sentence in half. So 25 words, that's my general rule. Okay, number 6 is show, don't tell. How many of you have heard this phrase? What does it mean to you? Show, don't tell. What does it mean? Cam? Very good. Absolutely, right? It's your opportunity as an author or as a writer, right, to help your audience or your readers understand what's taking place without telling them how to feel. And there's a very specific way to do that. And I've got about 5 tips that will help you do this, and then we're going to practice. My first tip for how to show and not tell your reader is to focus on the 5 senses, right? What do you see? What do you taste? What do you smell, right? What do you feel? All of those. So if you're using specific words like I heard, I felt, I smelled, right? You are telling the reader what's happening instead of describing what that actually feels like. You can see kind of the connections, right, that we're building here. Rather than using these sensory words, you're going to kind of challenge yourself, right, to again describe what these things feel like. So instead of me saying, I felt cold, well, what does cold feel like, right? Shivers erupted along my spine, sending goosebumps to parade across my skin. What's stronger, that sentence versus I'm cold, right? It doesn't do yourself, justice, right? Help that reader feel what does cold feel like instead of telling them it felt cold. Again, leaning into those emotions, right? This is the same concept. So instead of saying something like, I was so scared, what does scared feel like? Is it your heart beating wildly beneath your rib cage? Is it the cold sheen of sweat that glistens on your forehead? Maybe it's the chill that tickles your skin. What does scared feel like, right? So when you get those emotion-laden words, describe it instead of using that word. Trigger words. There are specific words that if you use them, you are always going to be violating this very important rule. So if you find that you're writing words like realized, I realized this, I felt, right? Or here's my favorite, was, not only is it passive, right, but you're also violating this rule too. Just train yourself to just go back and delete it. There's nothing you can do with that sentence. It's not going to make it better, right? Get rid of it, okay? But just train your brain to look for trigger words that are always going to just not work in your favor. I'm sure there's more. These are my top 3. So whenever I use these specific words, I'm always going to go back and hit delete. Spotting the correlation between passive voice and show don't tell, right? I started this whole conversation with something about passive voice. It's the same thing. It violates a lot of things in a variety of different places. So same example as before, right? Again, this is not just passive. She stood by the bed, but it's also telling the reader what's happening instead of letting them feel it instead, right? Same example, but it just adds fuel to the fire in my book. All right. Lastly, the power of nonverbal communication. 55% of the meaning of any message is generated by the face and the body, right? What is my face telling you? What are my gestures telling you? How am I standing? What's my posture, right? Your nonverbals. Another 38% is derived from the way a message is delivered, right? Am I super loud? Is my tone sad, right? Am I excited, right? It's how we're sharing the information, which mathematically means only 7% of the message is the actual words we speak. It's your dialogue, right? So we don't want to over-explain. Give your reader a little bit of some credit, right? And know that they are going to infer what's taking place. So for example, right? If you have a character that's kind of leaning in, maybe she's blushing a little bit, 'cause it's like really hot in here, right? Maybe she's toying with her hair a little bit, right? What typically happens, right? When you're using those mannerisms. Maybe you're a little attracted to the person you're speaking to, right? You're a little embarrassed, right? You're a little flushed or something. Describe what's happening to the character, right? Don't tell them instead. So show what the character is feeling. You don't need to tell your reader specifically, right? Nonverbals are your friend. You describe those and you are again showing the reader what's happening, not telling them. Yeah? Okay. I'm going to pause here, I think, for a second because I want you to have an opportunity to practice. I also want to catch my breath for a moment. So in front of you, you have a very short worksheet, and they are filled with sentences that are written poorly on purpose. So I want you to turn to a friend, make a new friend today. If the person next to you, you don't know them, say hello, introduce yourself, and I want you to work together. Rewrite the sentence using the information I just shared with you. We'll take about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll circle back, and we'll see what you've done. Go. Small groups are fine. No, I it's still Illinois. I know the
I guess I could just so I take oh, that's so telling. I read emotion. We're gonna go back to the
So I added to this. So when Sue received the news her puppy Ava had passed, her face crinkled and warm tears leaked out of her eyes. The garden was beautiful. All through the night. Harder than I did.
Sorry, like I don't know how to start. She showed up in my class one day. Yeah, I do. Just like continuing education. I feel my science like I was like,
Let's say thunder.
The night sky. The cake was delicious.
Sorry.
Kind of scared me for a second. Oh no. It's so hard to
It makes it worse. It's like, what's wrong with it? Like,
I like that. The night. I like kind of like, I won the lottery. When they embraced, you could tell he had been so how does it taste? Yeah. Is it too sugary? Is it like? Yeah.
Sure.
It's too sugary. I would say as the distance between the. Oh wait. We could still say that's delicious.
I'm like strawberries.
I know.
I love this.
green and purple that dotted the flowers brought a tear to his eye. Yeah. Now it's such. I can hear the pitter patter of raindrops on my window and a crash.
I put thunder roared and relentless rain poured down. Houses down. My heart with a piece put the cold overcome in my chest. As it was an exciting day to you. It was just like, I have something to say. I know, I feel like I can be interpreted in so many ways. Definitely specific days. I feel like it's a lot of like beliefs.
That's the
Like,
end.
Can we cover the ground in spray? The crunch. Yeah.
My hair is filled with.
Yeah.
I dropped some
My head is filled with anticipated memories.
That's what I'm saying. Eating dinner and like hearing stories. Eating, went to bed,
That's why we're here.
Anticipation. Like when you're writing it. Or this writing it.
What's forth?
As the building's probably What did you just say?
I said that familiar smells, cigarettes.
It is an exciting day to me.
Did you actually write?
Yeah. It's never going to happen.
Oh, I thought maybe you actually
No. I was just thinking like what would make it
It's like
Do we want to use that or something else?
when the breaks.
As the undergraduate and the trees grow. I said when she took in the rancid cigarettes. I said the rancid, I guess just because what if she likes to smoke? Yeah.
temperature fell, and our eyes reflected the sun. The temperature fell, our eyes reflected the sun.
All right, all. Let's go ahead and circle back. It's totally fine if you didn't finish all of them. I would be very impressed if you did. What's your initial response to this activity?
My brain hurts.
Your brain hurts. Yeah, I get it, right? It's not an easy thing to do. Kaya.
I was telling the group, this just showed me that my writing skills are like on the floor.
It's a very difficult skill to develop, but once you're like really cognizant of it, you'll catch yourself as you're like, "Ooh, no, that's not how you do this," right? Let's go through. If anybody here is willing to maybe share a little bit of what you came up with, let's start with the first one. She was so sad she lost her puppy. Yes.
Losing her puppy left a gaping hole in her chest.
That's beautiful, right? Don't you feel that more, right? Like as a reader, you're like, oh yeah, I know what a hole in the heart feels like, right? Instead of she was so sad, right? We see the difference. Nice job.
When Sue received the news her puppy Ava had passed, her face crinkled and warm tears leaked out of her eyes.
Ah, do you see the goosebumps? Right? We feel the difference in that, right? You even gave the puppy a name. You feel it that much more though, right? There's a significant difference, right, between what a reader is going to feel from emotion instead of just telling the reader what's happening, right? She was so sad versus, oh, look at those examples, right? How about number 2? The garden was beautiful. How do we make that better? Yes.
We put the sun shone on the roses and tulips decorating the garden.
Beautiful, right? So you're naming specific flowers. How is the light reflecting on them, right? You feel much more in the moment. You can picture it instead of the garden was beautiful. Absolutely. Anyone else want to share? Yeah, Shelby.
A blanket of flowers cascaded across the ground.
Beautiful, right? And there's so much more you can elaborate on that too. Excellent. Yeah, you guys got it. Nice. How about number 3? It was a stormy night. It was a stormy night. What else can we say about that?
We put the night sky flashed with thunderous beams of light.
Beautiful, right? And again, it's just a start, but you can automatically visualize what that stormy night looks like. What does it feel like, right? Are you scared? Are you outside? Are you inside? You know, like there's more that you can go with that story. Shelby, did you have one?
This is like the flash of thunders and chills down my spine and the lightning struck right next to me.
Look at you. Absolutely, right? But again, you guys can hear it, right? You see it. You automatically level up your writing when you think about how do I tell the reader, right? How do I show them what I'm feeling in the moment instead of just it was a stormy night, right? It just drives me nuts. You guys are going to see this everywhere. I promise you. You're going to open up a book, you're going to read a story, and you'll be like, oh, that's no good, right? Get rid of that word was. How about number 4? The cake was delicious. Yeah?
I like the one we put for this one. The rich chocolatey taste of the Portillo's cake melted on his tongue.
That's a specific cake. We've all had it, yes? It's good cake, right? Absolutely, right? How it melts on your tongue. What does it taste like, right? Is it rich? Is it creamy? Is it moist, right? All those better descriptive words.
I described this wrong, but my mouth watered as I brought the strawberry cake to.
Yeah.
And all at once, my taste buds are overwhelmed with the sweet tang of the strawberry.
Yeah, you're good at this. Nice job, right? That's just so much better. It's so much more descriptive than the cake was delicious. Let's do one more and we'll move on. Number 5, it was an exciting day. What'd you do with that one? It was an exciting day. Shelby.
I felt the spark of joy as I saw the possibilities ahead.
Oh, so positive. I love that, right? But it's so much better than it was exciting, right? What does exciting feel like, right? Spark of joy. I love it. Yeah.
I jumped out of bed as my first alarm rang, a rare occurrence. My excitement for this day has grown for weeks. There's no time to waste.
Excellent, right? But you're setting the stage. You're setting the potential, right, of the story to come. Nicely done. Did I see a hand over here? Did I make it up? No? Okay. You're like, no, it was not me. Yeah.
We went to bed remembering the exhilarating memories of the day.
Oh, beautiful. Absolutely, right? But exhilarating, right? That's such a more powerful word than it was exciting, right? Awesome. How do you feel now? Better? Yeah, right? It's one of those skills that as soon as you start to really recognize it and start to master, it is truly going to level up your skill set in writing. Well, thanks for playing. I appreciate it. I got a few more things to share with you before we wrap up today. Number 7, avoiding common mistakes. So these are just more like grammatical, sentence structure, things to be aware of that I want to kind of just bring to your attention because they are very easy mistakes to make. Homophones. Do you guys remember this term? Homophones, right? They are words that look really similar and sound really similar, but they do not mean the same thing, right? Kate left, but I don't know the difference between accept and accept. Every single time I stare at it and I'm like, where's Kate? And Kate has to help me, but she left. But there's a very good example here, right? Affect versus effect, aid versus aid, complement, complement, right? Principle, principle, allude, allude, right? Sarah?
I also was just gonna say,
Yeah.
I just saw an organization make this mistake in a social media caption the other day.
See, and it's so common, right? But when you're attuned to it and you're like, oh, right, there's a difference between these words. Kaya.
What is the stationary?
So stationary, you guys might not know this, right? But a long time ago, you used to buy like a box of what we call stationery. And it was like little thank you notes, like a sweet little envelopes and like a cute little stamp and stuff. Like it was a fancy way to say thank you to somebody. Stationary, as in like the tools you use to write a thank you note. Versus stationary, don't move, right? Two completely different things, but look, they look really similar. Yeah, all kinds of these, right? And they come up often, so it's just one of those things to be aware of that, of course, mistakes happen, but if you know the difference and know what to look for, homophones will automatically level up your writing. And then you don't look like an idiot on social media. Subject and verb disagreement. So we have our incorrect one at the top, we have our correct one beneath it, right? So let's look at this first one, right? The struggles that the horse experiences while climbing the mountain is intense versus the struggles that the horse experiences while climbing the mountain are intense. What's the difference? Is and are, right? So which one is correct, right? We got to go back and we got to look at the subject of the sentence, right? The struggle, the struggles is plural, which means your verb has to be plural as well, right? It's an easy thing to miss, but we always want to double check ourselves, right? Look for the subject of the sentence. Again, we're going way back to like junior high English, right? The subject of the sentence needs to match the verb that you're using. Very common error to make. Run-on sentences. These drive me crazy. They're all over all the time, right? Check yourself, okay? I enjoy writing immensely, but my deadline is looming. I am starting to feel overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed reading that, right? Okay, that's a lot going on. Give yourself a little bit of space, and it's okay to break up your thoughts. I enjoy writing immensely, but my deadline is looming. I am starting to feel overwhelmed, right? Just the difference that a couple of little punctuation marks here, all of a sudden you can understand what's actually happening in the sentence, right? Double check yourself for run-on sentences. Comma splices, right? Another one that is very common. It's difficult to know where a comma should go in a sentence. I recognize that. This top one, he was very hungry. He ate a whole pizza, right? Here's the correct way, right? Because again, this is a run-on sentence. He was very hungry, period. He ate a whole pizza. It's two separate thoughts, right? So you can split it in half by just cutting it into two sentences, or, right? He was very hungry, so he ate a whole pizza, right? Couple of things that you can do to get away from that run-on sentence. Missing commas in compound sentences, right? Here's an example of a compound sentence. Kate drove her brother and her mother waited at home, right? Two separate ideas combined in the same sentence. Here's the correct version. You add a little comma here, right? Kate drove her brother and her mother waited at home. You got to make sure the comma is in there, right, to separate the joining thoughts. Yes?
If it said like Kate drove her brother and he wanted to stop for a snack, would you put the comma?
Absolutely. It's a compound sentence. So yes, I would fully support a comma there. Absolutely. Good question. Extra commas or superfluous commas, right? I got to give credit over here to Sarah Hall again. These are her examples. They're wonderful examples, though. She's clearly a Harry Potter fan. Any other Harry Potter fans in here? Yes, raise them proud. Incorrect, right? There are some things you can't share without ending up liking each other, and knocking out a 12-foot mountain troll is one of them. That's a lot of commas, right? We don't need all of those things, right? Doesn't it sound much better? There are some things you can't share without ending up liking each other, and knocking out a 12-foot mountain troll is one of them, right? We don't need to separate so much, right? You don't need a comma every single time you pause in the sentence. It sounds weird. It doesn't look right. Incorrect parallel structure. I want you to focus on the tail end of these sentences here, right? Incorrect. The Tri-Wizard Tournament challenges involved flight, swimming, and casted spells. Flight as in active, swimming as in active, casted as in passive, right? Something that's happened past tense. So we want to make sure that we have consistent parallel structure. The Tri-Wizard Tournament challenges involved flying, swimming, and casting spells, right? So make sure that parallel structure is consistent across your entire sentence. Whew, almost done, I promise. Number 8, read. It's such a very, very simple tip, but I promise reading makes a difference in your writing. The more you read, the better writer you will become. And when I say reading, I mean read everything, right? Not just the stuff that you enjoy. Now, it's very obvious that I enjoy reading love stories, right? Romance novels, I love them, right? They're such a nice break from reality. I am all into it. But it's not the only thing I read, because I'm doing myself a disservice if that is the only thing that I read. Read all kinds of stuff, and I want you to look for good writing. Dissect it, right? What did you appreciate about the way the author wrote this particular sentence? How did they describe something, right? If I find something that I like when I'm reading, I'll highlight it, I'll copy it, I'll write it out somewhere, and I just keep this nice bank of things that I appreciate, right? If I write it down, I'm going to remember it a little bit better. So my advice, read everything. If you want to level up your writing, engage in reading often. It is hugely helpful to see how other writers have put words on a page. Number 9, treat your writing as a muscle. How many of you like to go to the gym and work out? Nobody. It's not my thing either, okay, right? But it's a pretty good example, right? If you're into working out, right? If you enjoy that, right? You're going to the gym to build muscle mass, right? It doesn't work if you go this Tuesday and then you're like, I'll get back in 3 weeks, right? You're not going to build muscle mass that way, right? So writing is also a muscle. If you want to get good at it and you want to stay strong or get stronger, you just got to do it all the time, right? Do a little bit every day. It doesn't matter what type of writing you're doing, but you do have to engage in it to keep your skill set strong. Write as much as you can and vary the types of writing that you do. While you all were working, Denise and I were just talking about how all of this factors into the different types of writing that we do. Well, not all of it is going to apply, right, to every single scenario. But I'll give you an example, right? So just yesterday, I started my day by writing a couple posts for social media. It's a specific tone. It's a very short piece of information that I want to share with a specific audience. It's very strategic, right, in nature. Then I moved to a feature story where I was a little bit more creative. I was doing more storytelling about Jasper's Java, the coffee house that just opened a couple of weeks ago. Turns out the guy that owns it isn't an alum of our program, right? Cool story. It was a feature. Then last night before bed, I opened up my work in progress in my novel, and I was working on a much larger storyline. Different types of writing, right? So engage in those different skill sets. It's hugely helpful. My final piece of advice is about editing, right? I think we all get hung up on how do I make this better in the moment? Well, the answer is you don't, right? Done is better than perfect. Write your draft first. Don't get hung up on, this paragraph isn't working for me. That's fine, keep going, right? It's the best piece of advice I can offer. Just save the editing to the end, right? Get your draft out there, let it sit there, maybe have another set of eyes look at it, come back with fresh eyes when you're done. But you want to make sure that that editing comes after you've completed your first draft. Don't get hung up on the editing. You can self-edit first, right? Before you hand it to anybody else. Look for eliminating all of those unnecessary words. I can't tell you how many papers I'm like, cut, right? You don't need them, right? So look for things that you can get rid of. Check your grammar. We just did a whole grammar lesson, right? Spelling, proofreading, all of that good stuff. And then after you have self-edited, hand it to a person that you trust. Somebody who can go through your work and automatically elevate it. And that is the end. Thank you all. I really, really appreciate your time and interest in leveling up your writing. Are there any questions? Yes, Shelby.
How do you overcome writer's block?
I've written a nice couple of blogs about that. I'll share them with you. I have several different tips for writer's block. First and foremost, I don't really believe in it. You can have writer's block for a specific assignment or specific paper, and that's fine, right? My advice to you is move on and do something else with your time, but make sure it is writing focused. Your subconscious is going to do the work for you. So if I am like super stuck, I'm like, how do I progress this story? Well, guess what? I'm going to stop there and I'm going to write my newsletter for next month. I'm going to write a blog. I'm going to write a feature story, right? So engage in a different type of storytelling or writing. And I guarantee you, 9 times out of 10, you're going to unblock yourself. But I have more I can say on it too. Kaya.
I forgot to mention this in the beginning, but please don't forget to sign in and skin.
Yes. Shelby's got a copy here. I will put another one up here. Please sign in so we can track attendance. We really appreciate it. Any other questions? Yes.
For a scholarship,
Yes.
if they do not give you specific instructions, like how long it should be, what's your guidance on, like, what's the sweet spot? Not
Denise?
saying too much, not saying too little.
Our scholarships are going to be very simple. There's going to be a list of criteria that you must meet. A 1-page essay on why you think you qualify for the scholarship or why this is important and where you want to go. Ours are going to be very specific.
But if they aren't, I'm applying for one that doesn't have criteria, and I'm like, ooh, I don't know, is it 2,500 words? Is it 1 page? What is it?
Oh, wow.
2,500 words is a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. 500 to 1,000.
Okay.
Ballpark,
Because I've never
right?
done this before, so I don't
Yeah.
even know how to.
I would say, and this is just my experience, right? I want to know what you're going to tell me in a single page. If I got to keep going and I got to flip, you've given me too much information. So check yourself in your writing, clear, concise, to the point. What information do I need to convey?
I intake scholarships. One paragraph is not enough.
It is
I
not.
would give that advice. 1 paragraph is not enough. I think they average about 2
I appreciate that.
And
Yeah.
do your due diligence. Look and see what the scholarship represents and what they're looking for in a candidate, and make your writing meet those specific things.
Good question. Anything else? Yes?
What classes do you teach? Because I tried to sign up for your 385 and then I got canceled.
Yes, it did.
But I was just wondering what else you taught.
Yes, no, that's very sweet. You're right. I'm not teaching 385 in the spring. I'm going to teach the senior capstone instead. That was just more of a need that we had logistically. But I teach 269, magazine production and design, every fall, and then typically 385 every spring, except for next spring.
And what's 385?
385 is feature writing. Emma can tell you about it. Very good. Excellent. Please apply for scholarships. If you have any questions, absolutely direct them to any of us. We can certainly help you. But I don't know about you, Denise, but it feels like we have so many scholarships to award and not enough students who show a genuine interest. Like, it's free money. take advantage of it, get recognized. It's more than just a check. You can put that on your resume too. Show future employers that, hey, look at me standing out in a school that has about 900 students. Like, it's really good. So excellent. I will get off my soapbox. I will be done. But thank you all so much. I really appreciate it.